Right. So my name is Damir. I'm from Croatia, and I will talk about JSON supported SQL Server. My email address in case you want to contact me for something after, and a little bit more about myself you can find on this slide here. So for many years, I was a passionate programmer and SQL Server developer, and I am certified Microsoft professional on various technologies. I am leading the SQL Server events in Croatia, or user group and organized SQL Saturday events in Croatia, and many other data platform events. I am founder and one of the founders and organizer of online conference. Named Spam, and I am also Microsoft MVP. Here on the slide you can find my LinkedIn and blog and email. So currently I didn't update my blog for some time, but now when the new SQL 2022 is out, for sure there will be new articles soon. Thank you to the partners of this conference for having me as a speaker. So we will talk about JSON supported SQL Server. And JSON support was actually introduced in SQL Server from 2016. And I know enhancements right now in SQL Server 2022, but still I didn't have enough time to prepare some materials about that. There are not many of that. There are 2 or 3 new functions, and I will write about them in the blog. Okay, so first we will see and why we could need it in SQL. To convert SQL datasets in JSON format in SQL. How can we also modify JSON document in SQL? And finally, we will finish with some more additional functions and some tips and tricks. So JSON, JavaScript Object Notation, is a language independent open standard format between applications and services. You can also store data. You can store data, not also, but only store data in JSON format. And JSON format is simple and very popular. It is commonly used, for example, in Ajax applications, web services, REST, for example, NoSQL databases. So in simple, are human readable lists of key value pairs. And now if we were live, I could ask you if you are using JSON, but currently I cannot do this stuff. So as you probably know, JSON supports only 3 basic data types. So strings, numbers, and Boolean values, plus the null representing the null value. All other data types should be casted in one of these 3. And here, as you can see, there is no, for example, date or date time data type. So dates are represented as strings. A JSON string is a sequence of Unicode characters surrounded by double quotation marks, and special characters must be escaped. So you could actually use string escape function you have in SQL support the function for escaping. So here you can see the escaping rules for special characters. And also the control characters like enter are always represented by backslash plus U and the code of the character. Here is the representation of custom format, and at the bottom you can see the JSON format is less verbose and easier to read. JSON objects usually contains less data than XML object, and it is more adequate for network transfers because less data means faster transfer. JSON format contains less text than the XML format. Data in JSON format are represented by arrows and objects, while XML is a tree structure. XML can store more complex data types and is more robust than JSON, of course. And one thing that XML is also better is that actually XML can store additional informations and JSON can store only data. We have multiple also differences in SQL Server about these two types. So JSON actually is not a data type. It is stored in varchar max column. So you have a problem with indexing. You cannot index it well, and also they sometimes use much more space because for varchar max data type, as you know. And XML, for example, you have a native XML data. You have XML indexes, and from 2022 you have also the compression of XML data type, so native compression. So in many cases XML would be better performing, but sometimes you cannot actually force it. So sometimes you must use JSON, and this session will help you a little bit about. So the server. So the answer to that question is pretty simple. JSON is a standard and it should be supported. Other vendors support it, for example, Oracle, PostgreSQL, and many others. And some of them, for example, such as PostgreSQL, are very serious and robust. And in these days, so applications, web services, so you really need to have JSON support also in SQL Server. Okay, so how can we convert the format? It's pretty much like creating XML data in SQL Server. As you probably know, you can use the for XML clause. And for that, for JSON, we have the for JSON clause. And we can use it in the select statement, of course. There are two supported modes for JSON, and these are the for JSON auto and for JSON path. The for JSON auto output will be formatted automatically by the SQL Server engine. And for JSON path, the output will be formatted by the query itself. And so you can actually use aliases and you can create more complex outputs with that. Also, you have three options. The first one is include null values, because normally the null values are not mapped to JSON property, so the property is ignored. But with include null values, the null value will be included. The second option is root, and is similar root option, so you can use it to add a single top-level element to the JSON output. And the third and last option is without array wrapper. And with using without array wrapper, we can format the result as a single object. Show this in example. Because of limited data types used in JSON format, data types by the rules visible in this table. Data types are not supported by JSON in SQL Server are geography, geometry, and CLR-based user-defined data types. JSON to SQL, you must cast the data. And the first demo. Okay, I will check. I suppose there are no questions for now. Okay, I don't see them. So let's jump to the first demo. So we will firstly try to use the for JSON auto, and we will try to convert this select gin and tonic as drink for JSON auto. If we run this example, we will get an exception, and the reason for that is that for JSON auto requires a table, so it cannot be used without a table. So let's give the table, and we will try to select star from sales customer, and we will also fail because the sales customers table contains some data type not supported. Yes, you can see here in this cannot be converted to JSON. But the same example is also if you try to select this data in customer, also geography is not supported. Okay, let's evaluate a little more. So if we run this, we will, because we actually don't have the name of the column specified for this, for the get date, and we have another error here. And finally, let's run a good example. So we actually selected these few columns from sales customers, and we have here a JSON document. I will paste this here. So this is, I suppose, more readable than SQL Server array, and with 5 elements. And these are actually records from this table. You have customer ID, customer name, phone number, fax number, etc. And notice here that your special characters are escaped. So this usually / is escaped by this character. Okay. Let's return to Visual Studio. Let's see. Okay, this is tabular result, but now we will try to compare it with XML, of course. So actually, I told you that it's smaller. The JSON output is smaller than XML, but if we actually look here, 1065 characters. And in JSON, we have, okay, a little less, a little more. I didn't lie to you. So the JSON is bigger right now than XML, but as you probably understand, this form of XML is readable and it doesn't contain many data that does. So if we, for example, try to create a better looking XML document, and now let's go here. So this XML is earlier one, and if we select all, we will now get 1,555 characters. So it's actually bigger than stacks, and here in the JSON you only have nodes, and you don't have to close them. This. So yes, JSON is usually smaller than XML. The second way to get JSON documents is by using JSON path. And as I told you before, it can create much complicated outputs. And also for JSON path, it does not require a table. So you will get, remember before this example didn't pass because for JSON auto cannot work without a table. Okay, let's now see what will happen here. As I told you before in my slides, in JSON path, you can create more complex outputs by using aliases. And notice here actually that the phone number and fax number, I give them some strange aliases with full stop in between. So contact phone and contact fax. Let's see visuals. And notice this. JSON output is, I have this node here, contact, and I have a sub element. So I actually, by using alias, created a much complex structure of the output. So this is actually the way to create complex outputs of JSON documents. Note that, for example, if you try to do this, so I have here two elements in the sub node, and then I have some other columns. And then I decided, okay, I want also the GSM. And if so, this is not supported by SQL Server. So all the sub elements must be together to be able to work. So this is working, but the original example didn't work because I actually divided them. Okay, let's see what will happen with some null values. So I actually made here, if some case, I faked two null values in this document. Let's see it in here. Okay. And notice in this customer number 2 and customer number 5, I, for example, don't have the website. The whole property is just here missing. There is no this website URL because the value for these two rows are null. So I can actually use this optional values. And now when document, let's see it here. You will notice that now the values are not ignored. So you will actually get the null if the value is really null. Code will not be ignored. Also, I show you in the slides that you can to add a single root. This root is so I have actually I specified, if you remember, root customers, and customer root like array of something, and I have here customers in this subnode. So also you could use this for also create more and more complex outputs of the document. Of course, the third and last options is to be used is without array wrapper, and what will. So let's first run the normal one. Okay, and let's paste here the result format, and you will see here. So this is a standard output, but when I am using the without array wrapper option for the same example, I have just, I cannot even format this because something is actually missing. But there are cases actually that you could need put. So with using without array wrapper, this array wrapper here is missing. Be thinking like me. So you would actually combine the root to add a single root and without array wrapper. Okay. And agent and to give him customers, but I don't run this, will get an error because is not supported together with use the root element and without array wrapper together. Okay, let's see. This is end of the first demo. And I don't see question for now, so let's jump to the next section, and then maybe answer if there will be questions later. So let's see if you get a JSON document in SQL input and you want data to SQL format. Okay. You can use for that purpose OpenJSON function, and it is a row set function or table. Can be used just like a normal table or view. It can return data in two possible ways. The first way of returning data is with the default schema. So of course the schema is not specified, and the second way of using it is with explicit schema. So it is actually user-defined schema, meaning that the return columns are defined by the user itself. So OpenJSON with the default schema, when you don't specify a schema for return result, the OpenJSON function returns a table with three columns type. So the key is the name of the JSON property or the index of a JSON element. The data type of the column is nvarchar 4000, and the columns does not allow null values. The second column is value. This is the value of the property or index defined by the key column. The data type of this column is nvarchar max, and nulls are allowed. Is type. So this is the JSON data type of the value. The data type of the column is tiny int, and you are actually getting a number between 0 and 5. And you can see in this table and appropriate descriptions. Let's jump to the demo about that. So OpenJSON with default schema. I will use database, but actually I don't have to use it because I have here a JSON document that actually somebody called John Doe, born, spouse, born after Woodstock, favorite drinks, it's drinks. And I want to select this JSON document by using default schema. So when I'm running this, I will get an error. This document is not well formatted. So notice actually here that after the name, something isn't closed. So these quotation marks are not closed, and I have actually an error. And it's actually properly formatted, and there is unexpected character J found at position 11. So actually the error is somewhere around here, and less or more is pretty good estimation of where the error happened. And this is you before the OpenJSON with default schema. We return 3 columns. So key, the value is the actual value for the property, and the type is a number between, for example, 0 is null, 2 is number, 1 is string, etc. Help function, and I will run this example again. So now you will actually see better what the real data type. So this 1 is for string, 2 is for null, etc. Okay, I can also select some subnodes, for example. So as you can see, this OpenJSON has an optional argument here, second, and I can actually tell, okay, let's select me from this JSON data, just the node called parents, and I will get here the result of this node. Okay, let's see and try to select a non-existing node. So I'm trying to select a friend. Probably see that here is no this friends node. When I selecting it, I will get nothing because it doesn't exist. But also in some cases, you will, for example, try to force selecting of a certain node, and you can do it by using this strict. So strict meaning that you strictly want to select this. Actually, this type of selecting JSON nodes is relaxed and called relaxed, and this is actually strict. So if I am trying to select the non-existing friends node with the verb strict, I will get an error because this property does not exist. And this is sometimes very good for some validations because you could use this strict, for example, like triggers or something for when some documents are inserted in your database and you want to be sure that actually they contain all required nodes and etc. Okay, let's now select the favorite things. I have here 5 objects, as you can see, because for SQL Server this is an object because it's has 2 properties, of course. Okay, and okay, and what will happen, for example, if I am trying to select this? I have, as you can see here, favorite space drinks, and I'm trying to select this favorite drinks part. So the path is not correct, and I get an error because I accidentally forget to use the double quotation marks. So actually the double quotation marks are required if you want to select such properties. And now it's working again. Okay, a little bit of theory. Let's check first if there are some questions maybe. No, I cannot see them. Okay, let's get back to the, and we will get back to in 1 minute. Open JSON with really similar to reading XML data in SQL Server. Schema when reading JSON data. In this case, the function will also return a table, but now the output will be columns and their data types will be specified by you or by the user. The schema for the JSON data can be specified using the optional with keyword at the end of the OpenJSON function. So we have the same document, but now notice here that after the OpenJSON here, I have this with keyword, and I actually specified here something like a table. So I actually have the name of the column, the data type of this column, and also the path from the JSON. Okay, let's run it. And now we don't have anymore just 3 columns, but we have 6 columns here, and the data types are. So the name is varchar, block, etc. Okay, and this example is similar to the last one, but I accidentally also forget one thing. And notice that I actually here wanted to get favorite drinks as n varchar max, but the favorite drinks are here, okay, but the result is null, also for parents. Why is that? Notice here in the previous example, I was using, when running this demo, you will see that here I have the favorite drinks and I also have the parents. And this is so when you are using this OpenJSON with user-defined schema, you must actually specify it for complex data types. So Okay, and otherwise you will not get the result like here. Okay, let's run this example fastly, and you will get here an error, of course, because I was trying definitely to get a JSON document, but I was using just the varchar data type. And this is not possible and not good because JSON requires n varchar data type. So you cannot use any other data types that n varchar data types if the result is JSON. As you can remember, I was using the correct result, and here I get the exception because I was using only varchar. Okay, this is a way to get some nested hierarchy with cross apply. So actually in the first select, I was selecting this favorite drink node as JSON in the n varchar max data type. And later I was using cross apply with this column from the first part of the select, favorite drinks. And then I specify also the schema with for the name and the drink. And so when running this query, I actually get for every this document, I get one row. So it's like inner join between two tables, similar to that. So this is actually a way you can get these complex data types. Okay, let's see the slides again. You have two functions. And that you can use. The first one is JSON value. So its purpose is to extract values from JSON text, and the second one is JSON query. JSON value is used to extract a primitive data type. So you only for simple data types like null, string, number, or boolean. One important limitation of this JSON value function in SQL Server 2016 is that a variable as a second argument, it's not supported. From SQL Server 2017, they actually changed this, upgraded it, and from SQL Server 2017, it supports variable for the second. Okay, and the second function is JSON query. So it is used to extract a fragment or to get a complex value type, array or object. So it returns a JSON fragment of type n varchar 4000, and it's used complex value types, so arrays and objects. So value is used, JSON value is used for simple data types, and JSON query for complex data types. Let's go to the okay. So JSON value, as you can see here, I was unable to extract this parents node, and because the parents node is a complex data type, so it's actually an array of many elements. And as I told you before, JSON value is used only to extract primitive data types. So only these strings, numbers, and null values and booleans can be extracted. and these complex data types cannot be extracted like arrays. Okay, JSON value. Let's. This is the example actually that you can. What will happen if you try to extract more than 4,000 characters? You will get actually null, but it can be if you are using a relaxed data mode, you will get null, but if you are using the strict, you will get an exception. Okay, and JSON query, it's used to extract only complex data types. So if you notice the example before, we get only the name, this born after Woodstock and something, and we didn't get favorite colors because it is a complex data type. So with the JSON query is the opposite. So you get only the complex data types and all the simple are null. So they are ignored. And this is only one idea what will happen if you are using, for example, strict to extract these data types. So it's impossible to use the strict if, for example, the result is a simple data type. And okay, this is all about how to read JSON data in SQL. Let's see the chat. Okay, I don't see nothing in the chat. Let's return to the slides. Okay. JSON modify is a function that actually is used for updating, adding, inserting, or deleting properties in a JSON document. Basically, JSON modify is a function for modifications of a JSON document. Let's see how it is used. Okay. JSON modify. Okay. So you see this. I have a basic JSON document with two elements, name and blog URL. I want to add an item that's saying it is currently presenting, and I actually want it to be a bit, so true or false. But when I run this, I get actually this, and notice actually that the currently presenting is a number, so actually it's int. I could also, for example, write here 5, and I will get the result. So this is actually not what I really wanted to achieve. I actually wanted to achieve this. So I have this, the result is here. And as you can see, just give me a second to turn off the statistics because it will be more readable. Okay, sorry. So this is the result, and now notice that this is Boolean currently presenting, and this is actually what I wanted to achieve here. And I actually did that I casted the value to bit, and now the SQL Server know actually what are my intentions about this column. Okay. If I'm trying to add a new item, but I'm using strict, I will get an error because strict actually requires that the actual node currently presenting exists. In this case, it doesn't exist, so I will get an error. Okay, second example, what I want to show you is that actually I have here an array. So this is mostly like an JSON array with two elements, of course. And I want to add to my JSON document the meetup list. So I want to add two meetups, okay? I am using JSON modify and I'm adding meetup lists. But here, notice here, actually, if you look at this result, you will notice that this is actually a string. So this is an escaped string result. So meetups is not anymore an array, it is actually become a string. You see, we have here open and close quotation marks. So it is basically a string. What I did wrong? I did wrong actually that I didn't specify this JSON query. Remember that before I show you that JSON query is for extracting complex data types. It is also for inserting complex data types. So now I'm telling to the engine, this meetup list is an complex data type. And when I'm running this, I will get new meetups, this item with 2 items, and actually it's a valid array. Okay, how can you remove a JSON property? Simply, you are calling the existing document, you specify the node, favorite drinks, and putting null. Let's run it. And the result is the same document, but without these favorite drinks. Okay, I can also, for example, remove the first item of an array. So I actually specify here, then in JSON document, I want to remove the first or the 0 element of the meetups, and I get null. But for example, if I want to completely remove this, so I actually don't want to get null, but I only want to get this SQL and JSON, I must do this trick. So it's not really nice to see this, but it's the way it works. So you cannot actually remove the first element totally. You can only update it to null. In this way, if you want to totally remove it, you must actually update the whole item. Okay, let's see this. So we started from this new SQL Server 2016. I specified that I want to change the first item of this array to something about new SQL functions, and you have the result here. Sorry. And what will happen if we try to change the non-existing node? It will happen nothing, of course. But there is also a way to add items to the arrays, and this is a way to achieve it. So you must use the append. So I want to add a third element to the meetups here. I started with 2 items and I finished with 3. So I actually appended an item to this. What will happen if you try to append an element to the non-existing lectures node? So the starting document does not have the lectures. I want to append something, and this is pretty great. So, you know, SQL Server added a new element called lectures and the first element. This is really great. But what will happen if you don't have the lectures, but you are using string? I suppose you know, or the result you will get an error. And what will happen if you have the favorite drinks here? You are using strict and you are forcing it to null. So the whole item is not removed. It is actually changed to null, but this is here. You know, without strict, remember, I will run it. The favorite drinks is totally missing, so you don't have anymore the favorite drinks. But with using strict, the favorite drinks will stay here and the value will become null. And the one downgrade of this update, modification of JSON document is, of course, that for multiple changes, you must have multiple calls. It's similar to, for example, replace, 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 replace. So you have here two modifications of the whole document. So you must call it twice if you want to make two changes to the same document. Okay. Let's see, questions, nothing. Okay, and let's go to the last slides. And the last demo. Okay. Is JSON? It's a function that actually checks if the input string is a valid JSON data. It returns int value with 3 states. So 1 for yes, 0 for no, and null for null. But each JSON does not check the uniqueness of keys at the same level. So notice here in this example on the right side of the screen, we have two names. And if you will run this isJSON, you will get 1. So it's a valid JSON document to SQL Server. And yes, last thing are some tips and tricks. So you can actually import JSON from a file, and it's pretty good for some data manipulations. We will see fastly how you can index some JSON data if you need some performances, and some 2 or 3 cool examples. So let's go to the last demo. Okay, and let's do it fast. Okay, is JSON. So this null is null, okay? This is invalid, so we get 0, and we get 1 for the third example here because this is a valid JSON document. But I am not sure what you think. Is this here document a valid JSON object or not? So SQL Server thinks that this is valid. Okay, you could, for example, use this. Imagine that you want to save some user settings to a table, and you want actually that these user settings are a valid JSON document, and maybe null is also supported. Okay, so I am dropping my table. I'm creating this user settings table, and I'm going to insert 3 rows. Okay, I executed this. I get some error here, but let's see the results. So I tried to insert 3 values, but I only get 2 values. So I get this with null, because null is allowed. Okay. The second one isn't inserted because it is not a valid JSON document. And the third one is here because it is a valid JSON document. So this could be a way to force inserting of only settings that are a valid JSON document. Okay, on my hard drive, I have a JSON file. It's pretty small JSON file, only for this demo. And you see, actually, we have here 3 rows. And I usually did many imports of large JSON documents from Drive, and it's pretty cool and pretty useful feature. What can you do about some performance issues? So I'm creating an example table, and I am inserting some JSON documents in this table, and I want actually to get some results faster, of course. So I want actually to get JSON value that actually customer data, that city name is Idaho, like Idaho City. When I select this query, I will see that actually, okay, it was pretty fast because it's really a small example. But notice here that I had 75 logical reads. So it is really a small table, and I had a relatively big number of logical reads. And my disk was spinning, of course. I can actually do a trick. I can add a computed column. So I'm adding, I am altering this table, and I'm adding a computed column that actually extract this city name, and I'm creating index on this column. And when now I'm rerunning the same query, I didn't change nothing. I didn't query the computed column, but actually I'm selecting this original document, but get here. So select star. This is compute customer city, of course, but I'm repeating the same select again, okay? And notice here, I only have 7 logical reads. So it's much better than 75, or what was the number? Okay, let's drop the index. You could also use this full text catalog and full text search. So you could use this. Give me that the name is near Idaho City. I get 1 row, and the messages I have only 2 logical reads. So actually, it is telling me actually that I was using much more, okay, CPU anymore not, but I have only 2 logical reads, and it's really catalogs about this. Okay, and I am dropping all this, and this is really nice. So imagine that your boss come to you and told you, I have 2 rows. I want to get only the columns that are different in these 2 rows. And you have a nice table with 86 columns. So these databases, as you know, it's a column with 86. It has 86 columns, and I want actually to select only the master and the model row. I'm running this, and see, JSON allowed me to get only the columns that are different out of the 86. So only 9 columns are different, the value. The database ID and this. So JSON is really great for this. You could also use it for processing comma-separated list of values. It's a little bit faking of this JSON, but okay, it can be used. It's cool, but it's really, you must, it's not so flexible, of course. And the last example I will show you is hashing. So you can use this hashing for fastly compare, for example, rows, row by row value into databases or into tables, for example. So you could actually calculate the hash of the JSON representation of the whole row. So here you can see the hash value included, and you could usually just compare this one column to the, for example, other server or other table or other something, and see if the hash values are different. That means different. And that's all about from me, from my side. So here are again my contact. Thank you one more time for having me as a speaker.